Hi, this is Kitty Gold Star's life journey. I want to talk about Whitney Houston. I know she's been on my mind, she's been around me, and it's just something I want to, finally speak on her behalf because I felt like she's choosing me somehow. I don't know. I just feel like she is. She's just always on my mind. I need to speak about the things that happened around 2012, even about her early life. A lot of people blame her for certain things. The way I see Whitney Houston, she was more like a broken angel, but a lot of people did that to her. Whitney Houston is literally an angel, even on the other side. She's an angel, very divine like. But let's go ahead and dive into Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston was born 1963 and died 2012. She was an iconic American singer and actress known widely as The Voice. She ranks among the best-selling music artists ever. And over 220 million records sold worldwide, she made history as the only artist to chart 7 consecutive number 1 Billboard Hot 100 hits. With her musical career, she released her massive self-titled debut album in '85. Her famous chart top songs include I Will Always Love You, I Wanna Dance with Somebody, and The Greatest Love of All. She was also inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2020. She also had her acting and personal life. She starred in the hit films like The Bodyguard and Waiting to Exhale. Of course, we'll speak about her marriage with Bobby Brown, and struggling with, the long-term substance abuse. And she passed away on February 11th, 2012, at the age of 48 due to an accidental drowning compounded by heart disease and cocaine use. And so they say, right? So we're just going to dive a little deeper into the conspiracy of Whitney Houston. I feel like Whitney Houston, she breezed through life. She had morals and this respect about her. I feel like she loved nature, something like that. She gave people what they wanted to hear, her music. That is what identified her. She endured the pain, a lot of pain that she went through, mentally, physically. She got through a lot of events and crowds being under a lot of pain. And I do feel like she was like sick. She got through a lot of losing and gaining things. She would lose things, she would gain things. And of course, she signed a major record label with Clive Davis. Truly, I felt like she gave up control to him. Like her rights, her soul went straight to him. And that's why people need to be aware of what goes on in signing deals, Hollywood, which they call Hollyweird. But when you give away your rights, when you give something away, like you're signing, it's your soul. It's a lot of you that went into that. That's how you're gonna thrive. That contract, it's what's gonna make you, you. The contract there is gonna give you your fans. It's gonna give you that house. It's gonna give you that car. Whatever you desire in this world, you got that. But that is in through the contract. She dedicated her life to music, giving her fans what they needed and wanted. And I do feel like somewhere down the road, she wanted independence. She wanted to be herself, be dedicated to her own work. She needed confidence. Like, I felt like she lacked that. And she needed help, guidance. This is where Clive Davis comes in a lot, like the mentor, because she needed that for her music career. She needed, like where to go with music, like how to do this, how to do that. She needed a light somehow. I felt like she needed a lot of comfort, a lot of love. I didn't see her receiving that. A lot of people around her saw her as Whitney Houston. They wanted to see what they could get out of her. A lot of people around her circle, more like using her or whatever like that. She was lacking a big part of that, which was love, that comfort. She needed to feel that. And I do feel like, she enjoyed a lot of acting, being on the screen. That was one of her things. It came natural to her when she acted. That was a big part of her. It was kind of like just letting go of her creativity, how she could express herself. Acting was a tool for her. She mastered her skills in the arts and the performings. The way she came off to the public, how she engaged, I saw Whitney as being like nuanced. What is that? So, nuanced means they are complex, perceptive, and able to see subtle differences and hidden details. Instead of seeing the world in black and white, a nuanced person understands the shades of gray. They are multi layered and possess subtle qualities that prevent them from being easily categorized or understood at a surface glance. They avoid binary thinking. They do not view the world simply through strict opposites like good versus bad or right versus wrong. They recognize that most situations have edge cases, exceptions, and hidden complexities. In discussions or arguments, a nuanced thinker takes the time to look at an issue from various angles before forming a balanced opinion rather than jumping to a one-sided conclusion. A nuanced person, they can hold and communicate complex viewpoints such as liking a person's work ethic while acknowledging that they are difficult to get along with. And their feelings are context sensitive and restrained rather than blunt or extreme. They might feel a mix of grief and relief simultaneously during a major life transition. Their actions are not one dimensional. For instance, a nuanced person's morality isn't just about following rules blindly. It is guided by a complex blend of inner values, empathy, and situational awareness. So yeah, she was a deep, complex thinker. That's how she presented herself. I was watching an interview with her and Oprah. They seemed like really like good pals, friendly with each other. She would use humor and she would make Oprah laugh. I like that about her. And even speaking about Lauryn Hill, she never put Lauryn Hill down. She praised her. The artist that she is what Whitney saw. She had these insights and she would tell people what she sees in them, what she think about them, how they can move along and be a better person. Whitney Houston was very inspirational to a lot of people who followed her footsteps, who seen her. She's like an angel. Her herself didn't even know it. Maybe she knew, but she was a mentor to a lot of people. She was a guide. Whitney was a deep diver. She saw things for what it was, but the way she judged it was she saw the good, she saw the bad, and she understood both sides. That's the beauty behind her, She accepted wisdom with all of her. The wisdom she gave, the wisdom that would come to her. Whitney, she never took life for granted. She never did. She understood hope, knowledge, struggle, and pain. She understood all these things. And she never wondered about how life would end for her. I felt like she was just in the moment a lot. She would just live every moment the way she wanted to. I was also thinking that if Whitney Houston would have stayed just with gospel music, growing up with her family, just staying in this box, yeah, I feel like she would still be alive today and becoming an inspirational guide to a lot of people because of her voice. I mean, we know she has the voice. She was literally given the gift to sing. So she would have went further with that, of course, as a gospel singer, if she would have stayed in that box. But Whitney Houston, her soul was meant to go further out, to explore. And she had fun, though. She really had fun. She experienced the things. It's like an angel, a real angel. And then they become broken because they go through so many things in life. They see the ups and downs, the twists and turns, and it's like, oh my God. But she lived every moment according to her plan. I don't think she regrets any of it. She had her fun, Let's go ahead and dive into Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown. The relationship between Whitney Houston and Bobby, it was one of the most passionate, high-profile, and tumultuous marriages in Hollywood history. It was a 14-year marriage from 1992 to 2006. Their bond was defined by deep, genuine mutual affection that was ultimately overshadowed by severe drug addiction, intense media scrutiny, and toxic behavior patterns. The way I saw the relationship when I actually engaged a little bit into it, I felt like the media was all over them all the time. Almost like they should give a show. This was a show for everyone to see. It couldn't be real. Media kind of wanted it to be like, hey, what are you two doing right now? Kiss or do this, however you act, do something natural. They couldn't make it undisclosed, even though it could have been. The media was way too much into them for it to be like a real relationship. So basically, I would say like the media kind of fucked them up a bit. They couldn't build anything together. Their whole relationship, it was broadcasted. It was just, hey, look what we can do. Look what's going on right now. I believe that a true, genuine relationship together involves two people more, hey, let's just keep this between us, I feel like they didn't have enough respect for each other. They didn't give each other that space, that time. They constantly tore each other down, mentally, physically, emotionally. Yeah, they would just drain each other of their joy. They couldn't just be in that moment. And they was never specific with one another. There'd be times they would try to avoid conflicts with one another about, whoever they met up with or whoever. Sometimes they would just keep secrets to themselves, not coming forward, telling the truth. But I don't feel like they was for each other. There was nothing there between those two. They were just performers. And that's how Hollywood had them. Everywhere, people saw them as performers. None of that was real. It was just to put on a show. They wasn't in agreement with one another. They didn't share that value, the same perspective. So there was no compromise, no agreement. There was nothing there, truly. I mean, they had a kid together, but that was about it. The only person that I saw more for Whitney Houston, and that was Kevin Costner, which she was in a movie with him, The Bodyguard. I saw a connection and there was something there. I'm not going to lie. It was more romantic. They had that love for one another. It was more respect. And it was unavoidable. Like they saw each other for who they were. Those two couldn't even come together because, she had her own thing going and he did too, So, that happens. It happens a lot. Careers, whatever is causing people to not connect, to not find their real true love, it can happen. But I do see that there was potential between Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner. I want to talk about her sexuality. There was a lot of speculations. Of course, Whitney Houston was bisexual. She experienced both men and women to the point where her and Bobby Brown had threesomes, with another woman. That was a big part of her sexuality. I would say more like her family, like her mom, others, but they didn't agree with her being, they would call it wild. Like it wasn't a woman of God. Her sexuality, it was like a blessing to her and it was like a curse, okay? Her peers judged her for it. But with Whitney, that was a passion. She enjoyed every minute of it, being with other women. She did. It's what set her off. It gave her like pleasure, a meaning to actually be herself. And the relationship she had with, her close friend and former romantic partner, Robin Crawford, they met as teenagers in 1980. And they shared a brief physical relationship before mutually transitioning into a platonic friendship and professional partnership that lasted until the late 1990s. I felt like there was love there. They had something with one another. It's sad that it had to be cut off because Whitney wanted to pursue her career. She thought that the only way to get above was not to represent that part of her, which was her loving another woman. It would keep her down. She felt like back in those days, you take it back, people was scrutinized for that, for being a lesbian, a gay man, whatever. So basically it wasn't cool to be a gay lesbian person back in those days. You couldn't move ahead. You couldn't be Whitney Houston, even Bobby Brown said it. I mean, I think she wanted to change her image and grab the bad boy and have a kid with this guy. And that's what she did. And she made Bobby Christina. And let's speak about the relationship between her and Bobby. What was that like? Whitney and Bobby, they shared an intensely close, loving, and inseparable bond. And it went far beyond typical mother-daughter dynamics. It was the unconditional love, a shared passion for music and intense media, and they was described as best friends who were entirely inseparable. But the thing about that, mother-daughter being inseparable, they're going to see a lot of things together. Bobby is going to see Whitney's flaws. Whitney is going to see Bobby's flaws. It can become, I would say, tumultuous, meaning like, chaos, noise. They would experience a lot of intense emotions with one another, which was not all good. Behind closed doors, you don't know what Whitney and Bobby presented, but, in the open, of course, you would see the unconditional love. I felt like it was filled with tragedies, a lot of turmoil. They would have it in for each other at times. They would. Behind closed doors, they would hate each other because it was a lot of pain and regret, and they would not follow up on each other sometimes. They wouldn't do that. So I felt like Bobby would probably harm herself in order to get the attention from Whitney. So it would be very chaotic. It would turn into dangerous situations, And then, of course, there was extreme drugs and alcohol Bobby would take. She would do that. And I do feel like there would be times where they wouldn't stand up for each other. It was a lot of past, like a lot of hurt and pain behind them. They saw each other. They wanted to be close to one another, but they also hated to be around, each other. It was like push and pull dynamic going on here. I would kind of place it towards, a toxic mother-daughter relationship. I would kind of see that because it's a push and pull thing. And Bobby still needing the attention from her mother. She needed that, the support. There's some creepy, dark thoughts that goes on, especially with Bobby Christina, I pick up. I mean, I'm sure there were times where she wanted her mom dead, but what teenager does not go through some crazy stuff like that? I mean, come on. Mom and daughter's not agreeing to certain things and, something happens. I mean, mother and daughters have fights, okay? They'll call each other bitches all the time, and it's crazy, When they're gone, oh my God, when your mom literally passes away, you mostly regret all that shit. And if no daughter does not regret that, then I don't know what to say about that. That was some real true hate there. Jesus, I don't know what else to say. The first time I read Bobby Christina, the first thing that I definitely picked up was daughter falling in the same footprint as Whitney, with the drugs and alcohol. That's the first thing I picked up immediately. Like wanting to be like her mother. This is who she is. That's what she wanted to accept. That was her stardom. Now bringing in Nick Gordon. Yeah, Nick, he had a surrogate maternal relationship with Whitney. She took him into the household when he was a teenager. I looked at Nick Gordon, like an interview he did, and he said the only reason why he think Whitney did it was because, her and Bobby Brown, they, went through that divorce. He was gone. I guess they needed another man figure in the household that could help Whitney and Bobby kind of like stay glued, somehow have a bond with one another. Nick was to help revive them back to a family. Gordon, he said that Whitney, she trusted him immensely, that he would look after Bobby Christina. He accompanied the family to major red carpet events, award shows, and music video shoots. He was like everywhere with them. Kind of like taking on the role of Bobby Brown. Honestly, Whitney Houston, she played a big role in that relationship, while Bobby kind of just tagged along. He didn't have a big role. He was just there. So it's like Nick coming in the picture and taking on that role so it wouldn't feel too empty. She never legally adopted Gordon. He wasn't even included in her will. Yeah, but eventually Nick Gordon and Bobby Christina, they did end up becoming more than just the fake brother and sister. They, actually became more into each other, I would say. Nick Gordon, I felt like he had a lot of charms to him. Like he was a charmer. He knew how to get his way, like a player. And he wanted to share that success with Whitney and Bobby, to walk around with them and, hey, I'm walking on the red carpet. Look at me. He of course he wanted that attention, that role. If he had a goal in mind, he would actually set out and get it. That was how he played. He was more like an explorer. Like he explored things, examined things. The ball was always in his court. Yeah, he was like a hustler. And he didn't care about what other people thought. He didn't care about their advice. A skilled talker, definitely a skilled talker. You know, like a player or someone, the way they would talk, they would get their way. They communicate clearly. You know, it's the confidence, it's effective to engage with others and keep the conversation flowing. He knew how to do that. I do feel at times he acted out. He was rebellious for sure. Nick Gordon and Whitney, there would be times, yeah, he would play her like a fiddler. She would let him though. You know, she would. He knew when to undermine her. You know, he was in charge of things, not her. But you got to think about it. She was the one that placed that role on him. He came in thinking that's what he could do. That was a challenge there. It's crazy because like Whitney Houston, you know, even Nick Gordon, Bobby Christina, I mean, they was not far apart from dying, you know? I mean, well, Nick Gordon, he died, January the 1st, 2020. Then they said like it was a heroin overdose. That's what they say, you know? I don't know. It's just odd. And I'm going to tell you why some of this stuff is just very, very odd. We're going to get very deep into this, okay? And this is where I'm going to take you. The relationship with Whitney Houston and Clive Davis. Let's dive. So, I'm going to give you like the facts though, before I get into like what I think, okay? Whitney Houston and Clive Davis, they shared like a legendary decades long partnership of deep trust, artistic mentorship, and a father-daughter bond. Very true. You know, with the father-daughter. He discovered Houston singing in a New York club in 83, signed her to Arista Records, and guided her rise to global superstardom. Whitney, she was discovered at the age of 19 years old. She was the backup singer for her mother, Sissy. And yeah, Clive was like he had to sign her immediately after hearing her solo performance. He handpicked her chart-topping songs and shaped her signature musical style. Pretty much, you know, yeah, he made her. Whitney referred to him, yeah, like an industry father, you know, like a dad. He tried to support her through her personal substance struggles, okay, holding interventions with her in 97. They had a tight bond, you know, private life, and the connection, it remained strong until, you know, her death in 2012. All right, I'm going to dive into like how I feel, what I see between Whitney Houston and Clive Davis. She played it safe, cool with him. You know, he was like the safety net. There was like, yeah, like a purpose, a goal to be reached. Now, when I say this, authorization, he had control over her, but permission was granted. She gave him the permission to do that, like it was a green light. She found him to be, you know, inspirational. Like those two, it was like a click. When they met, it was like, you know, it was like love, father-daughter click, father she never had. She saw the coolness in him, you know, and he would be calm and collected like. And he was full of a lot of knowledge. He knew a lot, and he would give her this knowledge. He would pass it along to her, like skilled advice. And there was definitely an ongoing dependency. She depended on him a lot. I mean, wow. You know, like father-daughter. He would give her a lot of time to discover herself. He would just give her that space, like he knew when to do that. Whatever she needed to do in her life, he would give her that. He did honor her. He definitely honored her. There was something about her core. He honored that. She had that knowledge, that skill, that wisdom. It was there. And her beauty on top of that, you know, it was like mesmerizing to him. Getting into this part, he pumped her up though. Dosages, okay? We're going to get deeper now. He supplied her. He was her supplier. I feel like he gave her drugs, whatever she needed, cocaine. He was the one to introduce her to drugs and alcohol. But it gave her the spirit to be herself. Somehow it gave her something like that oomph. Alcohol, drugs defines another part of you. It points something out to you. It pushes you further into what you need to be. That's what drugs do. It's like opens you up to more confidence. You could be like a very quiet person. You don't want to act like the good girl, but hey, you get that dose in you. Clive Davis, he knew she had, a confident issue. She didn't see herself like as the big dog. She wasn't confident in herself. But Clive knew what she could do. So it was like a booster. When she was, needed the help or whatever, he was the one in control of her. Like he would put her in these places where she got intensive therapy. Remember, her life is written under him. So she can't get away from him. That's not the contract she signed. This was like a forever going type thing. Clive Davis was the one that ruled her. So he would tell her to do these things, put her in these places or whatever like that. Her family would only agree to it because they see her in distress and going through a lot of crazy stuff, ups and downs. So, Clive, he somehow mentally would orchestrate these things like, okay, this is what I'm going to do for you, Whitney. And I feel like he would make her go insane, like fuck her up somehow mentally, I felt like he was kind of behind a lot of these things, okay? She basically had strict options. Whitney Houston had no choice. None. She had no choice but to obey Clive Davis. That's the contract she signed. That was it. Let's touch on the subject. How did she die? They say Whitney Houston, she died on February 11th, 2012, at the age of 48. She was found unresponsive in a bathtub in her room at Beverly Hilton Hotel in California. The official coroner's report ruled her death as an accidental drowning. Of course, I did see like the heart disease in there. Definitely she had that, like a heart problem. Autopsy results show that she had underlying atherosclerotic heart disease. I definitely saw drugs, mostly like prescription, a lot of pills. They found traces of cocaine in her system, which contributed to the fatal cardiac event and subsequent drowning. And they said she had prescriptions, over-the-counter medications, and I did see all of that. I saw all of it for sure. But, there's a lot more that I saw as well. This was a case that literally made me cry. Honestly, I was like, I don't even know if I can do this, talk about Whitney Houston, her life. It's definitely a movie. Things that needs to be shown but has not been shown yet. Almost like people are afraid of something, maybe the industry, whatever. But this woman was sacrificed. Whitney Houston was sacrificed. She was murdered. That's what I saw. It was the strong pull I got from that. So strong that it fucked me up. I was in tears. So it's how I see her. I know what she is, a beautiful angel. I know exactly what she is. And it's sad that she had to be broken down, become the broken angel. She went through way too much. She didn't have to have that life, but she chose it. She chose it. When you choose things, it's not a defeat. She could have done this life, she would have still been alive. It's not about that. This had to be done. When you come into this life, you choose to do the things you do. It is not a mistake. If you chose to do that, choose option A over B, C, D, whatever, that was your choice. So you must go through it. It's not a mistake. Nothing is a mistake. It's like art. You just make it into what you want it to be. And you go from there. Getting back on her death, the things that I kept picking up, I felt like she had regrets. There was a lot of regrets there. She wasn't balanced, not focused in a certain way. Something was going on with her. She lost control of herself. She lost her balance, for sure. Like she wasn't there. She wasn't present. Not coping and realizing, okay, she's scared. She realized she wasn't going to make it. She knew this was happening. She was caught off guard when she was experiencing whatever she experienced. And I'm going to get more into it. She was put in a position where she was harmed. Someone close to her harmed her. It was her alcohol. Something about her alcohol was tampered with. It had something in it, and I would say like A lot of prescription drugs or whatever, all this medication was in there, almost like something toxic, poisonous going on there. And I pick up the beer, especially in her beer. These pills was crushed up, by the way. Someone intently, like, drugged her. Like, this was intentional. And someone cut her air supply off. They say it was water, like her drowning. The strangulation. I picked up something with strangulation. Now, she mentioned something about a sore throat somewhere around February 8th, February 9th, 2012. I'm not for sure because now that I'm getting into this, I'm freely just freaking diving this stuff. I'm trying to figure out, did someone choke her, before she even died? Was she already being harassed? Yeah. And whoever did it, they wanted to get rid of her. There is people I'm seeing that's involved in it. And the people that I'm seeing, the people that is involved in this, and I'm going to mention a few famous names, okay? It is what it is, all right? I see Ray J. And surprisingly, only because I listen to his music, and I do see a part of Bobby Brown in here. I do. Clive Davis, he was the one that murdered her. He's a true key here. He was the one that, I would say that there's strangulation here, killing her instantly. And with the Bobby Brown, I think he just arranged for it to happen. Like, it was a setup. This whole thing was a setup. That's what I'm picking up, a setup. Jesus. Ray J. Jesus. The relationship between those two, it was a romantic relationship, like in her final years leading up to her tragic death. They had like a deep bond. Ray J, he would describe Houston as one of the most important people in his life, planning to officially and publicly announce their relationship the night she passed. There is denial of rumors. He was strongly denied persistent internet rumors, placing him inside her hotel room when she died. At the time of her death, he was in San Diego for a performance. He stated that he was barred from going up to her hotel room at the Beverly Hilton immediately as authorities cleared the area for family. He was denied ever doing drugs with Houston. Okay, so I do pick up he was not in that room. I don't think he was there when she died, but he's part of the plan. So getting into that, I'm going to say this. Ray J was involved in the killing of Whitney. It was to help his career. Acknowledgements. This is sacrificial. This is more like sacrifice. He let her die like he wanted her to. Like, I don't know why he would want to get revenge. Like, what? But he wanted some type of leverage, He took notice of her, wanted to be in her shoes, Of course, I'm picking up like strong, like sexual encounters. This was more like sex and alcohol. Their relationship was all over the place. Like, he wanted to prove his worth to her. He wanted more of her acknowledgments. He took advantage of her kindness, by the way. That's what he did. He wanted to be first in her earnings, her career. He wanted to be the first. Like, put me up there, put me first. Because he wanted recognition from her. He wanted to use her to get ahead in his career, basically. But again, this all backlashed eventually. This all like went sideways for him. It did at the end. He didn't get none of that. Instead, people placed the blame, part of the blame on him. And he is part of it, even though he was not. I don't see him in the room when this is happening. Clive Davis is in that room. I feel like he strangled her. He basically put his hands on her, killed her instantly. And I'm going to talk about someone else. I don't even know why I'm bringing this guy up, but he did come up, and I'm just going to talk about it. Al Bowman. Al Bowman, he's Whitney Houston's former chauffeur who drove the singer in Los Angeles for roughly 15 to 20 years. Following Houston's death in February 2012, Bowman, he spoke out in media interviews, including Entertainment Tonight and The Mirror, sharing personal accounts of her struggle with a drug addiction. He claimed to have witnessed Houston and Bobby Brown using drugs in the back of the limousine and spoke about the impact of her downward spiral. I mean, he mentioned that Whitney and Bobby, they caught the car on fire, like his limousine, and Bobby Christina being in the back, and Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown is using crack cocaine to get high right in front of Bobby. Al Bowman states that he saw like Whitney and Bobby have threesomes, with other women, famous women. So yeah, that's out the way, okay? With Al Bowman, I had to look at this guy. I picked up something about a chauffeur. I'm sorry. I picked it up, all right? It was just there. He's been with her 15 plus 20 years, something like that. Okay, so I feel like he introduced her to the Hollywood scene. He watched her fall. Of course, he would know she would die because he's part of that plan. I felt like he was part of that plan, you know. And when I say he helped her bust her out of that evening gown, I mean, look, he introduced her to sex and alcohol. He exposed her. He was like a plant put into her life, like a wrecking ball. She was young when they had sex. It's just what I'm picking up, okay? But it was consensual, okay? It was consensual. But he introduced her to that Hollywood life. He introduced her into that scene to make her into what she is. Again, this started way back. She was very young, very young. And I felt like he's part of like calling her out. Like he assaulted her somehow. I do pick up. I feel like he was there. He's part of that whole setup too. He's one of them. Part of planting, like to make her look like she killed herself, in that tub. Like she took a lot of prescription drugs and laid out in that hot water or whatever. But no. No. There was a lot going on. There was a struggle for sure. But Whitney was weak. She didn't put up a fight. This was done right behind her. It's like it snuck up on her. She didn't know what was going on. And then it just happened. Again, this was all a huge setup. I don't see, because I know Ray J's sister, Brandy. No, I don't see Brandy in any of it. But it involved people here. Bobby Brown, definitely Clive Davis, the murderer, Ray J, and Al Bowman, dude. And it could have been some more. Al was after something. He was after something. It's so crazy how he went public, after she died. He puts all this stuff out there. He could have done that earlier. But no, he wanted to say this now. He wanted to get this all out of his system and make her look like she was basically nothing, just a drug addict. And this is, but I'm going to give Bobby Brown a little bit of credit because, look, he's on the team. So he didn't do that much drugs. But Whitney Houston was the main one who did all these damn drugs. Like, what the fuck was that? Like, a lot of people had it in for her, put it like that. I wouldn't say a lot of people. It was just those. It was a setup to take her out and to do what they wanted to do. For some reason, yeah, I did pick up something where Whitney Houston, she wanted to be out of something with that contract. She wanted to be free from a lot of things. I remember picking it up when I read into Clive Davis and Whitney Houston's relationship. There was something in there for sure. She didn't want that anymore. She didn't. She needed an out. That, man. On top of that, she did have a lot of, health issues, mentally, physically. Of course, her heart. I don't know why I pick up the pain in her neck, but it could be her throat is what I'm picking up. Her heart was the one that was really like on it. There would be like heart palpitations here and there. But she suffered a lot. And even with something with cognitive, like there would be times she couldn't remember things or something like that. And I kept picking up, like there would be back pains here and there, legs. And maybe this is what she was prescribed like prescriptions for because she would use a lot of medications for her sufferings. But again, when it came to that whole scene, that stuff was planted on her, especially with that beer. What I saw with that crushed pills and stuff, all of that was found in her system. But she didn't do that to herself. Intently, this was done to her. Whitney Houston, she died at the age of 48. And I always like to do little numbers here, but I added together and her number comes out to be 3. Completion, divine, creativity. And then, you got Clive Davis. He died at 94, right? And all that equal up to like 4. So stability, structure, solid, like something solid there. Whitney Houston was something very divine that Clive Davis could never really touch. And when he released her anyways, I mean, yeah, I heard stories that Sissy, her mom, said that there was a ringing at her door. It was like 3 rings. And then when Sissy went to check, there was nobody out there. Nobody. But I feel like that was Whitney Houston's ghost. She would send messages like that, you know, even haunting her daughter, or not haunting, but somehow with Bobby, you know, because Bobby was not in a great stage when Whitney passed away. I mean, that was a hard grievance to take in. It was a lot. I think Whitney was there to warn her what would happen. That's why Whitney couldn't fully move on at that time, because she knew. And then it happened. Bobby Christina, they tried to say that Nick Gordon was behind killing her. Like, the whole scene, the whole setup was just like the mom's death. Everything, finding drugs and then the hot bath. I mean, this stuff was insane. Like, how is this so identical to her mother's death? Nobody don't see that trend? That was so, like, a tall tale. That was so telling of itself. Something isn't right, and it has something to do with the industry. People were scared, and I know they didn't want to talk about it. I know people was like, nah, I'm not saying anything. Nobody said nothing. They were scared for their lives. They thought they was going to end up like that too. I feel like people in the industry knew, including Brandy. All of them, they knew. Whitney, she knew they was after her. It's just so sad. And Bobby Christina, she got claimed, and then Nick Gordon, but he died in 2020. So, and maybe it was a possibility he did die of heroin overdose. Maybe it was, you know? So yeah, I can kind of see that now. I kind of see it. But that whole thing, Whitney and Bobby Christina, that's insane. You know, even at the funeral, you look at the funeral, that was back in February 18th, 2012. I remember I was sitting in my apartment, and I watched the whole thing. I did. I sat there. I was like, oh my God. And I saw Ray J just crying his freaking eyes out. This guy was bawling. He was the only one really getting it, right? You know, and at that time, I thought he was actually feeling for her. I did at that time when I was not in my true self. Okay. I was just like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. But, this was acting. Bobby Brown, he didn't even stay long. It was like he was there and he was gone. So a lot of things kind of told on itself. If you kind of see it, if you go back and you trace this stuff, this was premeditated murder. It was premeditated murder. I mean, come on. What? Like, wow. And nobody wanted to investigate fully into it. They just wanted to call it for what it was. Even though they saw the scars on her body, they saw things. And yeah, she did have surgeries here and there, but they were just certain, like, abrasions. Like, what was that? Nobody wanted to read into it. But, you know, because I feel like a lot of people, they knew. A lot of people knew what happened. I can see why, you know, people may have made a big thing about it. I see that. This is very heartbreaking, because I can't believe, you know, something like that would happen to someone as beautiful as Whitney Houston. Her soul, yes, she was a broken angel, but she really wanted to free herself. She saw things for what it was. She wanted to break free, but the only way to break free was to fully die. That was her contract. She is on the other side. She is safe. Her, Bobby, Christina, all of them, they're safe. They're good. You know, don't have to worry about this life over here. She experienced what she experienced, and now she is super divine. It's crazy because I feel like Whitney Houston, she comes around, you know, to remind me that, hey, I'm great. I'm a great being. So keep going. She's inspirational. She's an angel. That's what she is. She is an amazing, beautiful angel. I was like wondering about Whitney Houston because I wanted to know, like, what would you have to say to, like, everyone? What would be something you would say, like a message to people, you know? And she would say that she's safe. She's in God's hands, and hugs and kisses to everyone who supported her. That's what she wanted to say. That's what I picked up from her. This piece to me, like, powerful because Whitney Houston was really a blessing. Another Michael Jackson. Because it's rare to find those beings in this world. Because when they're big, they're big. I mean, they change the world. Like, they know how to change the world. It can be through whatever they use, and through them, their skills. And you got to be careful, because people will use that. They would take your skills, use it for themselves, and hey, you got to put a name on it because you got to sign under me now. You belong to me. She signed a deal with the devil. They can do that. Lots of angels do it on a daily. And some don't even know that they're giving their soul away to somebody. They don't know. It's sad how cruel people can just prey on the good. And people wonder, why do they have to act out like that? Because Whitney was strongly scrutinized. There was not supportive people around her. They would show her the good in front of her face, but behind her back, they did all sorts of things behind her back. They planned to kill this woman. They planned on it. You're not going to catch a lot of other people off guard. They're going to see this. And it was broad daylight. You could literally see that that was a murder. Has nothing to do with her leaving Earth on drugs, died in the freaking bathtub, and hey, that was murder, she wrote. Had nothing to do with that. It was way more than that. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude this. This was a lot to take in. It was a lot of emotions I experienced from it, from feeling through this reading and still, processing a lot of this, because again, it's Whitney Houston, and she will always be praised for her music. She's an amazing woman. She lives forever in my heart, and I thank her. So in conclusion, I'm going to go ahead and step away, and I hope everyone has a good day, a good night, and yeah, just bring yourself up if you can. Even though we're living in a crazy world, just bring yourself up, and I will speak to you guys again. I'm Kitty Gold Star.